Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Achieving Unity podcast. It is awesome to be here and awesome to see you here today. I love it every time. Welcome back to another, and this is an encouraging, inspiring, and including episode of the Achieving Unity Leadership System. Used to be the formula, but now we have realized it is a full system and it is going strong on a daily basis. So, our weekly podcast where we help people turn chaos into connection and purpose into action. I am your host. I am Mark Intrican, founder of the Achieving Unity Leadership System, also known as the Unity Leadership System. We can find it. It's available in many locations, achievingunity.com, achievingunityleadershipsystem.com, markintrican.com. It's where dedicated leaders come to improve their lives through encouraging, inspiring, and including others. EII, encouraging, inspiring, and including others. I'm honored today to have just a special guest. But what we want to talk about is let's just go through our slides quickly. Achieving Unity Podcast, we talk about real conversations for leaders navigating division, frustration, and change. And that's so much about what we do. Changes on the small steps, improvement is the large steps. And that's what we're going to talk about with you today. Next slide, please. Leadership today seems so much harder. It just feels harder than it should. So many times disconnection is going and it's growing, that disconnection between people. The frustrations that we have is just truly draining people, draining the teams because it's draining the leaderships. And when the leadership is drained, the people that work for them or work with them also become drained because good intentions are colliding with people in real world pressure. A lot of real world pressure out there that hasn't happened previously because of all the good that we've had with IT, information technology. We have to remember, we have to come together and build together. Unity is not a soft skill. Unity, all of us working together, is a leadership strategy. Next slide, please. What we mean by achieving unity. It's encouraging progress without enabling dysfunction, inspiring action without forcing agreement, including voices while maintaining accountability. We want to make sure that everyone is heard and everyone is participating. Everyone is included in what we do because that's what we are focused on the most. Building better businesses, better lives, and a better world, one conversation at a time. As I mentioned, I am your host, Mark Intrican, founder, Reality Focused Dynamics, and the Achieving Unity Leadership System. I work with people, with leaders, with teams, and families navigating conflict, changes that have come about that we've spoken about, complexities that come about that why is it complex? Should be, must be much easier. Helping them move forward with clarity, with unity, and sustainable action. So what do we talk about? We talk about where reality-focused dynamics our focused solutions, where they come from and what it's all about. Because focused is facilitate on clear, unified, sustainable execution and delivery. Focused. We must be focused. We must facilitate or be facilitating. Make it easier. You ever facilitated a party, a ball game? Have you ever facilitated a meeting? That's what we need to do, is to be able to facilitate on clear, unified, sustainable execution and delivery. Next slide, please. As you'll see on my screen, my phone number is 303 Focused, 303-362-8733. It's all about being focused. As I mentioned, focus stands for F is for facilitate. Tough conversations that build trust. Tough conversations that build trust, because that's what we need. Not rude, but tough conversations of the yeses and the nos that we know are reality. And we need to be facilitating on common ground, shared purpose. Excuse me. We want to make sure that we're focused and facilitating on that common ground that we all know and the shared purpose that we're all working toward. We must be clear. Communication and agreements are collaboration. We must be clear on what we're talking about. Unified. This is where unity comes in. Actions across our differences. And all of us have differences. We have all different thoughts. Excuse me. But that's where we all come together with a unity, being unified, coming across actions across our differences. Sustainable. We need results, improvements that are here that last. We want results that last, want improvements that go on forever. Execution. The execution is consistent, responsible action. You see how unified and execution come together? They are the actions that we take going forward. Delivery. Delivery is inspired growth and lasting change. What is lasting change? That's ongoing improvement. So we must remain focused. FOCUSED 303 focused. You can reach me there. 303-362-8733. That's where it starts for us all, being focused at the center, in the green on my logo, focused in what we do and what we need to do next. How do you contact us? Well, I've already mentioned the phone number. You can also get us at achievingunity.com, markintrican.com. We need to promote clear, unified, sustainable action starting now, starting today. We have all got to reach out to explore coaching, courses, workshops, and contact me for speaking engagements so we can promote that unity leadership, being unified, because achieving unity is the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and lasting change. So our upcoming conversations, talk about this a little bit more later, because what we're doing is building on more and more meetings, more and more people in what we do and how we build it forward. We need to make sure that each episode, and like our next episode, who's on it? Wednesday, February 25th? That's next week. The person that's going to be on it is who you and I contact and schedule. We're always searching for people with a story that is focused, like we talked about. How are we going forward? Like Steve, who I'll introduce in a minute. Always searching for people that are facilitating on clear, unified, sustainable execution and delivery. We can do that again through our EII, encouraging, inspiring, and including others. What can we do working together to improve relationships, personal and professional, as we end anger, which is like frustration, hate, which is a disconnection, as we remove prejudice and prejudging from every culture, every learning, and every mindset. But we do have Teresa Skuzirik, excuse me, I'm pronouncing her name. She will be here on March 18th to explore technology and management solutions through entrepreneurship and her passion and management solutions for the performance success formula. We'll talk about what it takes to pursue purpose with intention, innovate at a high level, and achieve extraordinary results without losing alignment or clarity. So what we're going to do now is talk to a friend of mine that I think the world of and what he's doing, because he's going to take it to the next step. Steve Cohen. You see, we have his QR code on the screen. Take a picture of it now. Get his QR code, bring up his site. Take a look at it. See what he can do to help you in what he's doing. So we now can go to the next screen. Next slide. We'll see. This is our guest today. Our Achieving Unity Leadership System. Our conversation today is with Steve Cohen. We're excited to welcome him he's a registered nurse, keynote speaker, and an advocate for holistic health. We'll talk more about holistic health in a few minutes, but he empowers healthcare professionals to take charge of their well-being, their confidence, and their mental resilience. Who takes care of those who take care of us? Through engaging presentations, interactive workshops, and online content, Steve provides practical tools that help individuals thrive personally and professionally, blending evidence-based practices with real-world application. Real-world application. His work offers actionable strategies and insights, helping audiences build resilience, boost confidence, and achieve success even in the most challenging environments. Let's bring him on. Steve, thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate being on your show and be on your podcast. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Again, like I've mentioned, I had one thing, we don't want to repeat things, but we do seem to remember it more. The abilities that you bring forward of what you do and how you've taken it forward in a situation that we don't think about many, many times. And that's our caregivers. So if you don't mind, start the podcast. You introduce yourself a little bit, tell how you started, what you're doing now, and tell us how maybe have you noticed how often caregivers are strong for everyone else, but sometimes doesn't it seem they rarely pause for themselves?
It's interesting because I am now a keynote speaker, but I didn't start as a keynote speaker. I started as a cook. And I
Wow.
started as a cook who was living in my car because I was not old enough yet to afford living in an apartment. So one thing about being a cook is the food is always free. You're never going to starve. The only problem I ran into is I decided to do it in the fall and live in my car through the spring, which was the third coldest Chicago winter
Wow.
that we had experienced. But I went and I decided that it doesn't matter really how little you have, it's what you do with what you have. And so I went as a cook. I decided I was going to go to school because I knew there had to be some other alternative outside of cooking at this restaurant. And I went to be into occupational therapy. And while I was in occupational therapy, there was a political person who was coming in who was talking about maybe cutting the program I was in as an occupational therapist. And I was one who doesn't want to wait till something happens. I want to really be proactive. So I went from occupational therapy into nursing, using what I had in occupational therapy to become a nurse. And one day I went and I realized there was a lot of people that I was taking care of as a nurse that really were having difficulty, but I wasn't sure the answer was always medical, was always a medicine, or was a procedure that could make them better. I thought being proactive, if they did something different, they would never run into the difficulties that maybe they were, or they'd lessen the effects of what had occurred in their
Right.
life.
That's excellent. That's amazing. And my son did that. Lived in his car for a while. He also took an ambulance and built himself a little van to live in. But that kind of commitment, and I look up to you to withstand that and to live through a windy Chicago winter, living in your car. That's amazing. So it seems
Yeah,
like your
what
journey, go ahead, please.
Yeah. No, because it happened when I was 17 years old. And believe it or not, I didn't realize till I was 30 years old that someone asked me what winter it was, and that's how I found out it was the third coldest recorded winter in Chicago, is when I told them, and they're like, "Did you not freeze?" I'm like, I guess nobody told me. And because nobody told me, I didn't notice there was a difference. And what I would do is every day I'd wake up and I'd go to the health club to get a hot shower. Hot shower is what I needed from being in a cold car. And then I would work out. So I took care of warmth and I took care of keeping physically fit. I would drive back toward the restaurant and I would stop at a cleaner's who they charged me about $2 for a pile of clothes. And so I would leave them every week a pile of clothes and I'd have a pile of clothes with me.
Oh,
So clothes were being taken care of. Then I had the restaurant, which I would work in the evenings, but would always take the extra food that they were going to throw out anyway. So I would have food throughout the day. Meanwhile, during the days I was going to school to make sure that I was moving myself forward because my goal was not to live in my car forever. So I was handling clothes, I was handling food, I was handling being physically active, being healthy, and giving myself longevity.
That's excellent. I see a lot of planning in what you're doing. That's a lot of what a lot of people don't do is we think about it, it goes across our mind, but we don't put that plan into that word. I love using it's a five-letter word. It's action. You are
Right,
doing something. You're putting those thoughts, those ideas into action. We all talk, we always hear talk, but the bottom line is putting it into action. And I see that you did that.
right.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about that story you talked earlier because it seems your journey blends nursing, blends that leadership, your speaking, and back to maybe what you talked about a little bit earlier, the moments that first pulled you toward helping healthcare professionals differently.
That was very interesting because it was 2020. It was the year of COVID, but it was January. And this has nothing to do with COVID. The first person who came in to my hypnotherapy office was a physician. And I thought to myself, a physician needs help. Isn't a physician the person who helps others? But he came in and he told a little bit of his story, what was going on in his life. And I was like amazing myself that he would ask me for assistance. But through what I call micro steps, we started making changes in his life, not changing everything in one night, just taking one thing, one micro step, and then building on it, building on it, building on it, till he could start making a change. So that's why I started actually working with people that I didn't even believe at any time that I was going to be able to work with. And then it turned out in that 1 week, I only had 3 people who came in, but believe it or not, they're all physicians for different reasons. And it just told me that, there's people who you sometimes think they're above you, but really in reality, they need you.
Well said. That's what happens with a lot of us. And as I
Right,
heard you talking earlier about the occupational therapy and things you're doing, you're able to use some of that to get into your nursing and learning about people. And when we all gain a little bit of knowledge, we can help others. And I think that's also, as I talk about achieving unity and success focused solutions, it's us working together because no one knows everything. We can
right,
all help each other in some ways, right?
right. And I just like yourself, Mark, meeting you one on one, and I don't know if you remember this, but I said to you, Mark, I only have one brain. Can I use part of yours? Because the thing is, I need the brains of other people to be able to operate, to get through day-to-day activities. And so, yes, we definitely need to work and be amongst others.
And I like the way you say that because we are borrowing from each other's knowledge.
Right.
And the best part is there's some of us, I hope to include myself in this, that we learn from others. It just doesn't go, how does that saying, in one ear and out the other?
Not the other. That's
But
right.
we borrow that brain, as you're saying, I like the way you say it, from other people, but we borrow it and we keep it because then we can treasure it and use it. And I like that. Has there been maybe some experiences in healthcare that maybe through some of that thought, maybe some through some of the brain borrowing, thought borrowing in our minds, have any of those maybe quietly changed how you view your resilience, which you have a lot of, just staying in your car, even at 17, you don't know what you're talking about, but things that have quietly changed how you view that resilience and now your leadership?
Or, thing as time goes forward, things change. And one of the things to be resilient or have, you know, some extra strength that you sometimes have to watch what's happening. You can't just be a spectator. And as things change, you have to change with them. Notice, and you don't have to change completely, but you have to make changes. And I think that's the thing that helps to build resilience, to be aware of what's happening, watch what other people are doing, hear what other people are doing, and experience some of the changes. And I think that's what increases your resilience. There's other things I think that are important, that you need to take a pause sometimes in your life. You need to take a pause just in that minute sometimes before you make a decision on what it is that you're going to do next. And I also tell people to sometimes even take a breath, because if you just stop for a second, take a breath, you realize all of a sudden the whole situation changes just by taking a pause and taking a breath. All of a sudden you realize that you're thinking just differently, and that only takes 30 seconds.
It does. And sometimes it takes just the 15, sometimes it takes the 30. But as you're
Right.
saying, even for us as speakers and as coaches and doing the workshops that we do, sometimes that chance to appreciate the quietness can help us sink in, as you're calling the work you do, and I call it adaptability. So we can adapt to those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And as things come about, we need to adapt. Most things are we're able to handle, but some people I think, or sometimes I think, Steve, like you're saying, that pause gives us the chance for those thoughts to come in because so many of us, we have so much on our mind, so many things going through. And I know we talk about multitasking and, oh, I'm good at multitasking. But we also know by listening to many, many people, multitasking is not good for us. We need to be able to concentrate. And like what you're saying, that ability for us to pause and to think about it for a minute can give us a little bit more value too, can't it?
Right. And think of the time that you, maybe at one time you struck out against somebody. I mean, struck out, like maybe swung at somebody, or you wanted to, and then you did that, and then 10 minutes later you said to yourself, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But if you would have taken that pause, that breath, you might have discovered that, maybe this is not the thing, this is not the direction to go.
That pause can make that difference. I did that this
Right.
morning in a meeting. I said something that I responded quickly and thought later, ooh, I probably could have handled that better. And it's a
Right.
challenge at times.
Right.
Well, one of the things, like you say, you've mentioned a lot of things to me that have just impressed me in many, many ways. And it seems that your work encourages people to become the CEO of their health, the chief executive officer of their own health. What does that mindset really mean beyond the phrase?
My CEO is a little bit different than that CEO back, believe it or not. My CEO is consistently eliminating obstacles. That's my CEO, which goes along with
I
the other
like that.
CEO also. But the thing is, I believe that you need to be consistent and be persistent in your life. If you go and you take a step and it's not the right step, or you fall down, remember that one time you were a child and you fell down. But when you fell down, did you never get up? So the thing that you have to do is to be the CEO of your health, no matter where you're at and who you are. You need to have consistency and persistency. Again, it's take one step, take another step, maybe what you can wait another day and take another step. And that actually all started again during 2020, Mark, is I went and I was asked to see a patient at home for a wellness visit. And it was February, and they had asked me to see a patient. And I said, what's wrong with this patient? And they said, well, she said she's having trouble breathing, she has anxiety, and she's running a fever. And I went to her home and I realized she was 74 years old. She was a little bit younger than I was. And I went and I said to her, you know what, let's meet at your front door. And she goes, why? And I'm like, because I don't know what's going on in your house. I don't know what's making you feel anxious. I don't know what's making you run in a fever. And I just don't want to go into the environment. But why don't we go outside and we'll just take a walk? So we took one step one day. The next day we took another, we went a house. We went one house one day, one house the next day. And the third day she said, Steve, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And I said to her, you know what? How long have you lived in this neighborhood? And she said, 50 years. And I said, oh, do you know all these people who live here? And she said, no, some of them are passed away and some of them moved away. And we started talking about the neighborhood. And before I knew it, she said to me, Steve, you lied to me. And I said, what? She goes, you lied to me. You started talking to me about the neighborhood and I couldn't breathe. And we've walked 2 blocks. And I said, that's because you kept moving, and movement is medicine, consistency, and you have to just keep going.
Wow, that story is touching. That's a story I hope I can give you credit for and borrow because that is excellent. That is so true. You change her mind connect. You change
Right?
the thought process that she was in at that time and kept walking.
Yeah. And one of my
That
keynotes,
action.
which is, yeah, one of my keynotes that's called Movement is Medicine, it's really about her and how we started in February. And on March 10th, the day that they announced COVID, was the day that her and I ran a mile. And people are like, a 74-year-old woman ran a mile? I said, I didn't say she ran a 2-minute mile. I didn't say she ran a 5-minute mile, but I'll tell you something, she ran faster than the 15-minute mile.
And she made it.
And she made it. And not only did she make it, Mark, she also, when her mother had just gone into a residential facility, a nursing home in Wisconsin, I'm in Illinois, and she went up to see her mother, and her mother was sitting in a chair. Her feet weren't even touching the floor, and she was deteriorating. And we used those same principles that we used for her to start moving, for her to help her mother start moving. And the first place her mother moved was back home. And then her mother, and then my person who I was working with, I call her Carol. Carol coughed more because Carol coughed more after we exercised, started to cough less. So anyway, that's where Carol Kaufmore got her name from. But she ended up working with her mother, getting her mother to stand, to walk a little bit. And it was the same thing that I did with Carol that she started doing with her mother. So that's kind of one of those pay you forward things that she used what she learned to use for someone else. And she's not a healthcare professional, but she did it.
That's excellent.
Yes.
Showing others to do and build. Because I even myself, even as a coach, sometimes I feel I need a coach. Well, I do, I have two of them, but sometimes that coach, coaching a coach helps a lot. So we realized quickly that people who learn to live a certain way, it goes from culture to culture, from learning to learning, and that can be as straining, that can be as difficult or challenging as any medical situation. Because if we
Right.
learn to live a certain way, we're going to live that way. And I've seen it. I've been in it, living around negativity and living around people who say, well, you can't breathe. What do you do? Instead of like you're helping them take that next step forward and don't think about
Right.
that negativity. That's excellent. Wow. I'm sorry. Give me again your CEO. Consistently obstacle. What
Eliminates obstacles.
eliminates? Consistently
Eliminates
eliminate
obstacles.
obstacles. And by
Right.
consistently eliminating those obstacles, and I'm just working with that now because I love it. Consistently eliminating obstacles, you're taking that action. So you're not just eliminating the obstacle, you're taking it to another step. You eliminate
Right,
the obstacle, but you don't just get your eraser out and erase it. What you're doing also is taking the challenge, that obstacle, one more step toward the good, right?
right. And you're also learning how to work with obstacles because if you can work with one obstacle, you may get learning to be able to work with another one.
Mhm. It's a great learning process,
Yeah.
building
So
those
Carol
bridges.
became a CEO. She became consistently eliminating
Consistent.
obstacles also.
That's right. And then taking those challenges and continuing those forward, right?
Right.
Well, as you see some of these things, because some people don't know, and what we don't know, as you mentioned, can be one of our biggest challenges. But have you noticed how anger or frustration can actually be signals instead of problems to hide? That anger,
Yeah.
when
I
we get
mean,
angry,
I think anger has to do with something occurs that you're just not used to, something that's not in your mindset. You know, when I was young, I grew up and my family was very close. The only difficulty is they were a little bit too close because I wasn't allowed to see other people because I had a paternal a father who believed that everything should be done his way. And that's one of the reasons why I moved out at 17. And but the thing is, what happens is when you start being in the same environment and you don't look outside your environment, you think that's the way it
so true.
is. And when somebody does something that you did that's not in your environment, you get anger and you get frustration because you want to tell somebody, no, that's not the way it is. And that's the way I was probably till I was 21. I would tell people that's not the way it is because that's not the way it is. But in reality, the way it is actually the way somebody believes it is. And I've learned that
And that's,
frustration. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to add what you're saying
Oh,
because
no,
that's
no,
what
but
we add on to
I
it.
was
That
just saying frustration and anger sometimes comes down to just it's not the way that you're used to doing it, but sometimes I myself have been in those situations of frustration and anger and then realize, wait, stop for a second and just listen to this. This could possibly be a better way. And many times it has been.
Mhm. And that's what I talk about with one of my speeches is talking about, and then with my coaching, anger, actions not gaining effective results, ANGER. So the
Yeah,
anger does not do us any good. It's, well, when I get angry, I do something, I get action. Well, that's good, but you're not keeping the anger, right? You're turning it into passion. You have a passion to do better. So the
right,
anger and or frustration is as limiting as I think you were talking about earlier. The woman that when you're walking around the block and she feels she can't breathe, when she got her mind somewhere else, that mindset, it improved, right?
right. And
So the
that
anger or
anger,
frustration.
yeah. No, I agree with you totally. And the other thing I was just going to say is, when you have that anger, that frustration, there's energy that it just takes out of you. It just takes the energy away that you could use somewhere else. I mean, I would love to any day get a little bit more energy added to my life. And then if I go and I go backwards a little bit, or if I were to ever be aggravated with someone or angry at someone, it just takes too much out of your life. You might as well just go, take a nap for a while to try and regain some of what you just lost.
Mhm. And the anger and your frustration, as you're saying that I talk about a lot, the more you hold on to it, the more it brings us down. And
Hmm.
being able to take our mindset and build in maybe a better direction. Maybe just call it a different direction to start with, but it's still a better direction. And as I talk about unity a lot, and unity being a leadership skill, it seems that unity often starts inside one person before it
Right.
shows up in teams. Have you
Right.
seen that play out in healthcare as well?
I think define unity once, if you more, if you would.
Unity is the ability for us to work together with others in a positive, professional, productive process. Unity is for us to understand that we are all the same with a few differences. Unity is about us being able to take a challenge, a chore, or an activity, and working together to help complete it. Back to your CEO, back to getting that obstacle, working to eliminate that obstacle together, because there's many things we can't do alone. So unity is that ability for us to come together, knowing that prejudice is foolish, anger is foolish, any of our other concepts of looking toward another one is foolish, but instead knowing that we are all the same and we have all have similar dreams and similar desires and similar needs. Unity is about taking that, us working together to achieve results that benefit us and those around us. That is unity.
Right. Yeah, that is very important. I think to make any movement, you really need to have unity with other people. I I myself always used to think that I could do it all on my own. Living in a car, I could do it on my own. But what I realized is I wasn't really doing it all on my own. I was doing the motions on my own, but somebody else was giving me the job. Someone else was encouraging me to move forward. Somebody else was telling me, you know what, that can't be the last step is where you're living or what you're doing. So unity sometimes is people connecting with you, and sometimes it's people who are telling you, you know what, move forward. I've seen you before. And when I've seen you before, I know you can be more than where you are right now.
I see that so many times. And as I talk about, as we briefly mentioned on earlier, what we know is who we are. And I work in situations that how many people believe, and it's wonderful to see where you were and where you are today because of how many people believe, well, I'm homeless. I am a cook. Well, okay, you are, but that's not what you have to be forever. If you enjoy it, and there's some great cooks out there. I know my family has some wonderful cooks in the family, but they do other things. There's nothing wrong with being a cook. If you're homeless and that's your desire, it's your desire. It's what you learned. Because too many homeless people don't know that they can work at a fast food restaurant and have so much more. There's people that just don't know about things about prejudice, that prejudging. People just don't know. And for us to be able to reach them, everyone, it's not just us, being able to reach out and teach people is so strong because we must learn to do more, right?
And that's so important. I remember once listening to a speaker. He played for a Chicago football team, and his wife lived on the south side of the city. And she said, I saved up my money just to take the bus. I was never able to take the bus. And one day I took the bus and I took it as far as it could go. And she goes, I ended up in a rich neighborhood. She goes, I never knew people lived rich. This is the time before, we didn't have social media. But she said, I didn't realize that you could live rich. I didn't realize that you could have this on your house. I didn't realize that you could even own a car. And some people own two cars. I think just going back to that unity, letting people discover the potential that they have, because if someone else can do it, you can do it too.
Huge, right there. If anyone else can do it, you can do it. And that's where I get into the unity. We
Right,
are all the same and we are able. There are situations where there's going to be some challenges, but we can get beyond those challenges back to your CEO, eliminating those problems that come about, those
right.
obstacles, continuously eliminating those obstacles. We can all do it. And then through unity, that we can work together. But sometimes we can't do it alone, right? We
right?
need to work together in building that growing forward. Have you found someone in your medical history and the people that you coach and you're speaking that have you found that a lot of times people sometimes lose their sense of purpose before they realize that they are burning out on what they're doing or their concepts in life? Sometimes they lose
And
that
I
sense
think
of
sometimes,
purpose.
yeah, I think what's happens is sometimes people think that this is it. I just can't do another step. I can't move another direction. And they think that that's it. And the difficulty with that, and I just find it with people that I work with, and also I find from my younger life is sometimes right when you're ready to stop, the prize appears. If you would have just given it one more step, one more grab, one more breath, one more movement, that it's there. And even if it doesn't appear, you are still going to be one step forward from where you were yesterday. So you can celebrate even not stopping. I don't know if the other thing I didn't tell you, Mark, is with this woman that I did the movement is medicine on. That day I started running. And on that day, March 10th, 2020, I've never stopped running any day. I'm over 10,000 miles of running since
Wow.
December. I mean, March 10th will be my 5th year will end of running. But the thing is, you can't, I could have had that belief like, okay, we're done. And you know what? I've accomplished that. But the thing is, what I realized is just one more step. And before you know it, one day turns into 5 days, and 5 days turns into 30, and 30 turns into 365. And then you look back and you think to yourself, was I ever going to stop? And I'm thinking to myself, I was, because I thought I had accomplished what I needed to accomplish of getting somebody to run 1 mile, and then realized that I myself was not running the 1 mile until I started running 1 mile with somebody else. That's unity.
That is unity. Well said.
Yeah.
I'm impressed on your running. That is amazing. But it's one of
So,
those I can relate to the story because there's one where I even became very, and I teach against depression. I talk about the things that we can do to get beyond depression and not to be depressed and to
right.
help ourselves. But yet I had gotten myself into those situations. And like you, I started walking just a couple of miles a day. And it helps me get beyond those things, such as our relationships and the struggles and challenges that just aren't making sense. The
Right.
things that we can do ourselves to take those steps. And it's helped me a lot. I only do 10 miles a week, and I don't walk when it's 30 degrees or below or 39 degrees or below. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty spoiled. But it's a situation that without walking and taking those next steps can make a huge difference. So let's talk a little bit more about some of your speaking and what you're doing. What
Okay.
do you have anything coming up? Do you think you can kind of share with us that we could participate in or help you promote?
Well, I have a book, believe it or not, that's called Beating the Blues Today, that is coming out last July. But I being the first book that I have put out, I've learned that you just don't write a book and it just appears. There's a lot of things that have to work. So that book should be coming out in the next month. And what's special about that book is I talk to people, it's not for healthcare professionals only, but I talk to people about, I believe there's two depressions. There's clinical depression and there's situational depression. Clinical depression is something that needs to be treated with medicine. Situational may also be. It's just that sometimes if you can change the situation, you sometimes can change the depression in situational depression. Clinical depression, and I haven't seen that. I worked in a psych hospital in Colorado for a while. So right now I'm working, that book is supposed to be coming out. I work I have three keynotes that I discuss. As I said, movement is medicine is one. The other one actually is also called Beating the Blues Today. that I talk to people about that. And the other one's called Nobody Told Me. And Nobody Told Me is it's about the innocence in us where people have sometimes told us to do things and things that we believed as a child are kind of like wiped away, taken away from us, thinking that, you know what, grow up now, you can't be a child. But in Nobody Told Me, it's a story and a lesson about keeping going, believing what you believe in, and not always having to believe what other people talk with you about. So those are the three presentations I do because again, I just want to enrich and enlighten other people to know that they can make a difference in their lives or where they're at.
That's beautiful. And so congratulations. That's amazing. I'm working on a book. I've been working on it for 3 years. I still don't have it out. So all the compliments in the
Yeah,
world that you've done that and taken that to the next step. That's so important to how you're helping other people build
right,
and almost in a way to breathe, talking about it in some ways,
right.
like your earlier story. Do you have, or maybe have you noticed a simple practice that might help someone feel relief when stress builds?
Well, the things that I've talked about already are important. One of them is, as you said, Mark, is to take a walk. Taking a walk really helps. It doesn't matter how far you walk, because sometimes taking a walk or taking a step, the next day you may not have achieved your goal, but you know what? You're one step further. That's one thing that I tell people. The other thing that tell people sometimes is to breathe. Now, I believe that you should breathe for a count of 4 and exhale over the count of 6. Inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. Now, this isn't yoga. Um, this isn't meditation. This is what it's doing is it's breaking that thought, that impulse, that pain even. I've had people do that for pain too. And it just breaks that pattern, that thought, that movement, that discomfort, just to make you realize that you can change it. And you don't need somebody else to change it for you. You can make the change yourself. So just
And
every keynote I talk about has to do with really what you yourself can do in 30 to 90 seconds to make a change.
I like that. Have you found that some of that resilience that you're talking about is built more through consistency than it is intensity, but like taking those next steps?
I do. I mean, being consistent, being persistent really builds up your resilience. It really makes you stronger to continue because other people who stop, you can look back and see where you're at and see what you've done. And then the other people will sometimes, they're not getting it. And they're not getting it because they're not consistent like you are. They're not persistent. Anybody who comes into my hypnotherapy programs, that's one thing that we always work on. And before I even accept anybody into a program, I just say to them, I want you to tell me before we start that you are going to do this. You may think that hypnosis is the magic, but the magic is you, because it's important to stay consistent and persistent. And if you do this every single day, you're going to notice a change. You might not notice the total change tomorrow, but you'll start noticing change, and change is good.
Change is so good. And as I
Right,
mentioned earlier, change is that small step, and that change leads to improvement, which is
right.
built on that consistency and just doing that other. That's one of the things that we teach through achieving unity, and that's that power. And I do mean the power,
Right.
the strength of being able to encourage, inspire, and include others personally and professionally. Because if you do that with consistency, it builds within ourselves, doesn't it?
Hmm.
It's a situation where that helping others can help ourselves.
Yeah, and going back to the unity too, one other thing I sometimes do, Mark, is sometimes I'll go up to someone who's maybe sitting somewhere, and I'll just say to them, I'm like, "Can I talk to them? Can I talk to you?" And they'll say, "Do I know you?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "But I wonder if you can help me with this problem." And it's not really a problem; it's just a thought. I'm like, "What would you do in this situation?" And people are really engaged that you would ask them, no matter what they think, that you're higher than them or lower than them, they really engage with you and say, you know what I did in my day, or you know what I would do. It creates unity by just going up to somebody and asking them a question.
I love that. I think that's excellent. And as you mentioned earlier, if I want to go back to one of your stories, when you talk about working with a physician, a very intelligent person in many
Right.
ways, and to help them and
Hmm.
ask them questions is a strong, can create a strong bond between the two of you and learn, as I think you mentioned, and I agree, you can help them also. You may not be
Right.
the physician, you may not have the degrees, you may not have all the certifications or the experience, but that doesn't mean that something that you say or do can't help them. And I thought you brought
Right.
that up very well earlier.
Yeah. Nobody is above you. Nobody is below you. Everybody is really a little bit of you.
In unity. So true.
Yeah.
I agree. And one thing is that you work in healthcare, and something we hear a lot about. It seems sometimes that organizations reward exhaustion without realizing it and the
Yes,
impact
they
that
do.
has over time. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, you get patted on the back when all of a sudden you come in and you've worked the 60 hours. What a trooper you are. But the thing is, being a trooper is not leads to being longevity. What you really need to do is to stay within what's an acceptable limit for you, what's an acceptable for you. When it comes to being, 50 years from now, nobody will remember that you worked 60 hours one week. Nobody will. You may have that memory, but the thing is, even that memory, because it's so long ago or even days ago, just dissipate. And that's just the way it is. Bear with me 1 second. I'm losing electricity for some reason.
No. I've had that happen the other day. I was at a hotel. Didn't take my power cord. But,
Yeah, I have my power cord, but oh, here's why
okay,
it's
good.
not. Okay.
That's excellent.
Um, got it.
Got it. Is working okay?
My power cord has two pieces to it. I didn't realize they weren't connected. I'm good now.
Good. All right. I like all the processes. And of course, one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown, and she talks about
Oh, yes.
vulnerability. Have you noticed how culture, the culture of leadership in itself can change when that vulnerability becomes acceptable instead of risky? And I think it goes back to working too many hours. But leadership cultures change when that vulnerability becomes acceptable instead of being risky, right?
Yeah. I think people are afraid to say that they're vulnerable, but all of a sudden, you hear somebody else say they're vulnerable, and you think to yourself, you? No. And in reality, that it's true. And sometimes that allows other people to let down their guard, lets them to become a little bit more human
Mhm.
because they realize that somebody that they looked up to is going through some of the same difficulties as they are.
And that says so much right there that we don't realize it at times, but out of the 8 billion people in this world, we're all alike in so many ways. And the challenges that we have, wherever we may live, whatever country, whatever continent, so many of our problems are very similar.
Hmm.
And boy, it just touches on so much that you've talked about, Steve, even to be able to ask them. how they're doing, and then listen to their problem. If we think about it, we can become very in touch with them because we've had many cases, similar issues, not exact, that ability to understand others and listen to others, which is so important, can be so valuable in what we do.
Yeah.
And I
I've
like,
had as patients of mine people who are high profile. And so I have had that chance to hear somebody say something. I'm like, no, what? You're a musician. You're a football player. That what? And I think it, but I never say it. But then it makes you realize that it's true.
yes, they're that, but they're also so much more, right?
Right.
All right, Steve, we're getting close to the end here. I've enjoyed having you here. Do you have anything to say at the end? What can we do to contact you? How do we get in touch with you? What do we do to find out more
You,
about you and what you can do to help us?
if you go to stevecohenspeaks.com, that will take you to where I speak, but it also integrates some of the things that I work with hypnotherapy. Um, my hypnosis program is called Medvesta Hypnosis Healthcare, and you can get in touch with me there. But you know what's most important is if you go to that website, read the blogs, because the blogs are actually events that have happened with people that I've taken care of. And it's not to promote hypnosis, but it's to promote what you can do to change. If it's pain, if it's smoking, if it's anxiety, if it's like you feel like you can't make it, there's a blog in there that actually talks about somebody who has come in. And I
Excellent.
do those specifically because I want people to know that they can always be a success. No matter what you're going through, that you can be a success. So that's Medvesta Hypnosis Healthcare.com. And for speaking, stevecohenspeaks.com. Any questions you have, feel free to reach out and ask.
Great, Steve. Thank you so much. Thank you
I,
for joining us today. And as you said, consistently eliminating obstacles. That is excellent.
right,
Sharing that experience, sharing your heart, your practical
right,
wisdom with our listeners. I appreciate the way you help people understand that resilience is not about pushing harder, but about reconnecting with meaning, with health, and a purpose, and your purpose in a sustainable way. So, to everyone listening, are you ready to set up to build better relationships, families, communities, associations, companies, and universities? Thank you for being here and being part of this conversation today. And thank you for choosing growth and understanding. If there's any part of achieving unity, reality focused dynamics, success focused solutions, any of that reaches out to you, please contact me, www.achievingunity.com or www.markintrican.com. Email me, mark@markintrican.com. I want to hear from you. And as Steve spoke to us today, reach out to him on LinkedIn. He has a LinkedIn site up there as well. As he mentioned, stevecohenspeaks.com, STEVECOHEN speaks.com. Get out there, get in contact with him, find out more about what he does. We never know how some of that psychotherapy that he spoke of couldn't take us one step further, right? So, Steve, any last comments before we close?
well, you have 24 hours in a day. And I appreciate you took one of those hours to be with us today to get some alternative thoughts of where maybe you can make some changes in your life. Thank you.
Steve, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That touches because I talk to this all the time about that 24-hour day limit. So it is a big thing to take that hour, and I've enjoyed and appreciate and cherish the time that you've been
Yes.
here. So until next time, let's continue to transform that complexity into execution, chaos into connection, and our purpose into action. Let us continue achieving unity. www.achievingunity.com. Call me 303-362-8733, which I hope you know is 303 focused on your keypad. We can stay focused on turning chaos into connection as we achieve unity by harnessing that power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others in building better businesses, better relationships, better lives, and a better world. This has been Mark Intrican with Achieving Unity Leadership System, reminding you that life is truly what we make it. Let us help people feel seen, heard, and supported in everyday moments that truly matter and make life awesome together in unity. Thank you all. Thank you again, Steve Cohen,
Thank you.
SteveCohenSpeaks.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your message and helping caregivers and leaders rediscover resilience, purpose, and balance so they too can continue serving others without losing themselves. For your time and your commitment. Thank you again. Hope to see you
Thank
all
you.
again next week. Till then, cheers.